Again, it's good to be with you. What I'm doing for the first part of these months in the fall is talking about some verses in the Bible that mean a great deal to me and really reinforce the hope that I have in Jesus Christ. Mary Oliver, a poet who died a few years ago, said we need to learn to pay attention. It is an endless and necessary thing to pay attention. To pay attention, to look deeply at something or even someone whom we love. Be still, the psalmist said in the 46th chapter of the Psalter. Be still and know that I am God. For I am exalted among the nations, and I'm exalted in all the earth. Pay attention, Mary Oliver said. We listen to a verse like that. Be still and know that I am God, for I am exalted. And we listen to it with what Theodore Reich, the psychoanalyst of the last century, wrote in one of his books. We listen to it with a third ear, not just with our two ears, because sometimes they're so cluttered with noise, but what Reich called the third ear. The ear that listens to the music beneath the sounds. The ear that listens to what is not said by somebody. The ear that listens to the tone of what a person is saying. Not just the flow of words, but pay attention to what is not said and how the person says it. Be still, the psalmist said. You know, that is a difficult thing for many of us, to be still. In certain religious traditions, like the Society of Friends, better known as the Quakers, they gather in a circle. There's not an official clergy person to preach a sermon. When somebody is inspired, that person speaks. Otherwise, there is the silence. Try that in most free church traditions. Try that in your Baptist church on Sunday morning. Maybe you have a unique church, but suppose I, as a pastor, say, I'm going to have the pastoral prayer, and then I'm going to give you 5 minutes of silence to reflect on God's work in your life. You know what people are going to think? I didn't come to church for silence. I came for sounds. And we start hearing, even in the 5 minutes of silence, the fidgeting of people checking their watches, because the minister's watch always runs slower than our watches. People who are sitting there making paper airplanes out of their bulletins. Just 5 minutes of silence, to be still and to know the God that is exalted. Frederick Buechner said one time that of all the missing persons in the church service, the person most missing is God. That's why when you and I come to worship, we don't come to invoke God's presence to us. God is already there. Suppose somebody prays, God, please be with us today. Where do you think God is? Do you think God is hiding behind a bush outside of the church, waiting for us to invite God into our service? What if we say, be with us, Holy Spirit? Where do you think the Holy Spirit is? Do you think the Spirit is outside the door of the church waiting for the usher to let him in? Or do you think that what we do is to be alive to what is already alive to us? Be still. One of the words that I like is solitude. Whenever I prepare a sermon or even a devotion like this, it is so important to me to have solitude, to have quiet, because what I want to do is I want to open that biblical text and I want to stand in front of it. As Karl Barth said one time, the Swiss theologian of the last century, Barth said, I have read many books, but the Bible is the one that reads me. And so I open the Bible to the text, and my prayer is, God, speak to me so that I can speak your word to others. In other words, I have to be still in solitude, coming to the text with the hope and the expectation that if I can listen, if I can hear, I am the one who reads this text. If I'm the pastor, I read it and hear it more than anybody else. And if it means nothing to me, then I guarantee it will mean nothing to the people who hear. Solitude. We need that to encounter God and for God to encounter us in our lives. So often, we are busy with so many things, so active, one thing else to do in our lives. And what we miss is what the psalmist said. Be still, know that there is a God, and know that this God is exalted. That's what we want to hear in these words. Because if I don't have a God who is exalted among the nations, exalted in all the earth, maybe even exalted in my own life, and trying to share that with other people. If I don't have a God who is exalted, then I really have nothing of any size to speak to the people. And I sit there at my desk with the Bible open and a few other books. If I don't understand that God is exalted, that God is big enough for all the things that we face in our lives, then the preaching is diminished and only becomes not a cathedral of words, but simply a string of words. Pay attention, Mary Oliver said. Be still. Be quiet. Listen. Listen to what God says with all that you have. And friends, that is what gives me hope. Because if I take time to listen, I'll not only know God, but I'll know the God who is exalted, the God who can change all of our lives.